while everyone's waiting for 2012, and they're waiting for all these things to go on, and they're waiting for someone to come and save them, and the Messiah's coming, and it's the end of the world, and all of these things that people are saying, all police forces across the world are quietly being merged, and Codex Alimentarius is being introduced at the end of this year. Now, Codex, if you haven't heard about it, the Food Codex, it's about control of the entire world food supply, like every single vitamin on the planet, every nutrient on the planet, every seed, every blade of grass, every cow on the planet, every dairy cow, every meat cow. All of these things have to be injected with Monsanto stuff and all of these chemicals and toxins, and basically every single piece of food on the planet. They will control that. And through the control of food, they are able to control the flow of nutrients around the planet. So they can selectively wipe out any sections of population that they like, anywhere around the world, through the control of genetically modified food. You can still be giving these people lots of food, but it has no nutrients in it. So they're going to get sick, and they're going to get all sorts of preventable diseases. Not going to be dying from starvation. They'll have quite a lot of weight on them and all this sort of stuff, but they'll be getting no nutrients. And they'll be getting toxins, and they will die. That's what the whole thing's about. Now, they can do this, and they can reach their goal that they have got outlined on the Georgia Guidestones of 500 million, and they can do this by 2012. Once Codex is introduced on the 31st of December 2009, they pretty well have the entire world by the short and curlies, absolutely, and they can do whatever they want through the control of food. So that's why it is so important for people to get some heritage seeds and start growing your own food. Start becoming self-sufficient. You don't need anything that the system has to offer. You honestly don't. I mean, you're much better off working on the land, getting back in touch with humanity, getting to know your neighbours. It's a much better way of life. It really, really is. All of the trinkets and the lights and the glitz and the glamour and all of the rubbish that they put you through, it's a joke. It's an absolute joke. I've tried watching television in the last couple of months, and I can't watch longer than about 30 seconds of it. After 30 seconds of it, I can feel I'm just so bored. I just cannot understand anymore how people can sit there and watch this box of moving pictures just telling them all of these lies and rubbish about the world and giving them this completely false perception of reality. And that's all TV is. It's just a complete propaganda tool. And people really must realise this. Get the fluoride out of your diet, get the television out of your diet, and you will be absolutely amazed at the change in your life, in the change in your consciousness. Don't get your news from corporate means. There are literally thousands of independent news websites put out by independent agencies in all countries. You can go and get all sorts of news from these places, and you can go and compare the same story from 100 different news sites, 100 different news websites, and you will find the true story in a lot of things, and you'll find true arguments and real discussions about these stories, not the corporate version of the news. But you've got to understand, all corporate news is run by 6 people. 6 people, that's it. You're getting the opinions of 6 people. Actually, I think it actually might be 4 people now. Someone was telling me the other day, but at my last count it was 6 people, but it may be 4 now. But all of these 6 corporations, anyway, get all their news from those 2 news pools, Reuters or the Associated Press. But Reuters owns the Associated Press, and Reuters is owned by the Rothschilds. So that's what you're getting when you're watching the television. It doesn't matter what station you're on, that's what you're getting. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, as I was saying before, it's important to remember when you're looking at all of this stuff and when you're researching all this stuff that no one is any better than anybody else, and no less and no more important, and that people do make mistakes sometimes. You might find someone saying something a little bit different now than what they were saying 4 or 5 years ago, but that's the way it goes. That's called learning. That's called growing. And we all do it. I mean, freedom isn't freedom unless it also includes the freedom to make mistakes. And that should be That should be looked at by everybody. I mean, we all make mistakes, absolutely. And people do more and more things. I mean, as people become more aware and begin to see more of the light, they get sort of called on in different ways inside themselves to do more and more different things. You know, the problem is that most people have a great deal of difficulty differentiating fact from fiction. Reality is that which is so in creation, and illusions are beliefs about reality which are not founded in fact. But sometimes it's very hard to know exactly what the actual facts are. You find that the mentalized illusion of this reality is man's accumulated misconceptions about himself and about creation through our five senses that's accumulated over generations and generations and generations. That's what this reality is. It's like a hereditary genetic disorder, something like that. But you need to look at all the research, and you need to not have the researchers, fans, pitting themselves against each other because they prefer someone else's tone of voice or someone else's view. And everybody makes mistakes. I mean, everybody's had words about everybody else at some stage or other. But ultimately, it's all about unity, because divide and conquer is the motto, and that's what the Illuminati criminals top want to do. And a lot of people, admittedly, they'll try to feed you with fear, with all this sort of stuff, and it just depends on your actions and what you're focusing your emotional energy on when you listen to this stuff. You know, I mean, sure, you need to explain the situation to everybody as well, but you need to do it in the right way. And if people won't listen, well, don't worry about it. Just focus on what energy you're releasing yourself, because as I keep saying, every thought you have recharges the supply around you, and the more you can stay in this positive vibrational state, then the greater good you're going to do. That's why it's not that necessary to wake people up. I mean, you tell them about it simply because it's important and you think they should know, because, I mean, you care about these people and you want them to know these things. But ultimately, it's only important that you wake up within yourself, because that awakening does help awaken others, whether you believe it or not, simply because of the energy thing. And you'll find that once you've centered yourself in this positive energetic state, you can talk to people about these negative things in a happy way. You can just bring it to their attention and be laughing about some of the things you see on the news and stuff like that, and say, oh, God, I expect people to believe that. And all this sort of, I mean, you can do it in the right way. You can put a positive slant on all of it. Admittedly, there is a lot of negative stuff in the world. So you've got to try to, well, not distance yourself from it. You need to look at the information and absorb the information as reality is what's happening, but not fixate on it in an emotional way. Or if you are going to fixate on it in an emotional way, you want to do it from a center of love. One of the most important things is to stand by each other. All of you need to stand by each other. And if you see injustice towards another person, you know, especially if it's coming from the police or government, then you really, really need to understand that it is also being perpetrated against you, right? And this is true on any level, on every level, and even on an international level, because ultimately the entire human race, the entire human experience is a single consciousness. We are each other. We are quite literally one. And that brings me to the next point that I wanted to make. But and again, I must stress that looking at this, you need to deal with all this sort of stuff as information. And I truly do believe you need to keep focus on that, and you need to see this reality for what it truly is. It's what we make it. It's I mean, it's holographic. I mean, even science is saying, oh, gee, we think the universe is holographic. It is. It's completely controlled by our emotion. And this has been proved in all the experiments that I've talked to you about on all the other shows of Masaru Emoto and all the experiments that Greg Braden's talked about, and even Stephen Hawking's and people like this are saying this. I mean, if you go down on a quantum level and you look at what makes up atoms and how they're all structured together, there is no such thing as solid matter, okay? So this whole thing is pretty well holographic, and it's controlled by our emotions and our intent and our observation of the universe. They did the electron experiment where the electrons behave differently whether they were being observed or not, which means that electrons have consciousness. We're connected. Everything is connected. It's all consciousness, the whole thing. So you need to keep that in perspective when you're dealing with negative information. Notice how they plan all these things as well. You've got to notice the ritualistic nature of it. Notice that they plan them and they advertise them. They always do. It's like, oh dear, we hope there's not going to be a riot at this certain event. Which of course means there is always a riot at this event. I mean, they advertise it. They tell you, oh no, we hope there's not going to be a catastrophe there, or we hope there's not going to be a terrorist act, or we hope there's not going to be a war. Which means there is. It means they're planning one, and they're just trying to get you to accept that, and you'll start thinking about it, so you'll help manifest it as well. So in saying all that, by way of conscience and by way of necessity, I'm forced to bring up the situation in Gaza.